Okay, so let's kick off. Thank you all for joining. So this webinar is about integrating Palo Alto GlobalProtect and also Prisma Access with Thales Secure Trusted Access. Okay, and the idea is to give you an idea of how nice the user experience is when using the SAML protocol. But first of all, let me introduce you to Exclusive Networks. So Exclusive Networks is a value-add distributor, and we sell cybersecurity solutions to our partners. I work as a system engineer at Exclusive Networks, and I'm responsible for a couple of vendors. Among them are Thales and Palo Alto. But we also sell a lot of other cybersecurity solutions. So, so as I said, my name is Steven. I've quite some years experience in cybersecurity and networking in general. So if you only look at the age, I'm the senior at the Exclusive Networks, at least at the tech team. So yeah. So what is the agenda for today? First of all, I'm going to introduce you to the two solutions in particular. So Thales Trusted Access. And next, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Palo Alto GlobalProtect and Prisma Access. When this is done, I'll show you only one slide about how SAML works. SAML is the protocol we're going to use to authenticate, but it's important to understand what is happening behind the scenes. And then we're going to deep dive into the integration of those both solutions. So I'll do this with screenshots, but after that, we're going to dive into the demo, okay? But first of all, I'll open the session for questions before we go into the demo. Okay, so let's kick off. So Safenet Trusted Access. So Safenet, it was the former name of the solution, which is now acquired by Thales, but the name is still Safenet Trusted Access. Now, what is it? It is a complete identity management solution, which is fully cloud managed. Okay, it will allow you to to introduce you with multi-factor authentication and single sign-on to your web applications. What is important here, it's a fully cloud-based solution, so you don't have to worry about maintenance windows. Upgrades are done for you because it's offered as a service by Thales. Okay, so no appliances, nothing on premise, so quite easy to install for your own or for your customers. So what is an access management solution? Hold on. So in fact, Safenet Trusted Access sits between your users and your applications. Okay. Well, in this webinar, we talk about SAML. Okay, but there are also other authentication protocols we can use, of course, like Radius. But for now, we're going to talk about SAML. Why? Because these applications you see here on top are SaaS applications, just like Office 364, Salesforce, and so on. And all of these SaaS applications, they support the SAML protocol. And SAML is a requirement for single sign-on, okay? If you want to be able to log into Office 365 and then do single sign-on to Salesforce, for example, you need to use the SAML protocol, okay? It doesn't work when you would use your Radius, for example. And also GlobalProtect, you see it here, it's a solution on premise here, but also GlobalProtect can be used or can be configured to use the SAML protocol. And we'll see that the user experience for GlobalProtect is a lot better compared with, for example, Radius. Okay, so you see here three things. So multi-factor authentication, of course. Okay, so Trusted Access is going to offer you multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, but not just single sign-on. It's called smart single sign-on. Why? Because you can make policies which will define how you will log in. It will become more clear on the next slides and in the demo. So yeah, here again, these three components, single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, and policy-based access. Now, what is this? Well, let me show you just an example of such a policy. Here we have a screenshot of a policy, and the SaaS application which we're going to use here is called C-Suite. Okay, it could be Salesforce, Office 364, or GlobalProtect or something else. But in this example, it's C-Suite, and here you can see. So here are the applications. These are the applications we're going to make a policy for, and C-Suite is here the Active Directory group which we're going to assign the application to. Okay, so you see here these applications will be available for the Active Directory group C-Suite. Okay, we could also publish it to all users, but in this case we only publish it to C-Suite. Okay, of course the application is granted, and here we will define how the policy, how the users will log on. So you see here that both a password and a token-based authentication is required. Okay, so the user will have to do both. Okay, and furthermore, you will have to do that every access attempt. Okay, so normally we would not do it like this because it's not really user friendly, but you see here this is possible. Okay, what we can also do is we can define the policy so that the password or also the token authentication is only needed once per session. Okay, so as long as the browser window is open, you won't have to log in with your token again. And that's in fact what we do with single sign-on. So let's say that we have logged into Zendesk. Okay, it's set to once per session. Then we go to Google. Then we will not have to log in with our token once again. But I'll show you in the demo. It will become more clear in the demo. Okay, it's also a scenario driven. So this is the global policy for this policy, but we can make it. We can define more detailed scenarios. So in this example, yeah, so these are the things we can define in a scenario. So if we look at network, this is based on IP addresses, we can make a policy that, for example, if you log in from the office, you can do single sign-on. Okay, even without token authentication, for example, without multi-factor authentication. But if you do that outside your office, for example, from home, a token authentication is required. That's just an example. Also, we can look at the operating system. For example, and I'll show you in the demo, you can ask a password for Mac PCs, but not for Windows PCs. Okay, the user device is a device already known to the system. Have I already logged in from a certain laptop, for example? If that's the case, okay, the next time you can do single sign-on without the need for a password. If it's the first time you log in with that PC, we'll ask for a token authentication, for example. Also location, so we can So if you move from one country to the other, that's called change of country. We can ask for a token authentication. If not, maybe just a password authentication is okay. Okay, or you can whitelist or blacklist specific countries. Now, what authentication methods are supported by Safenet Trusted Access? First of all, we still have the hardware tokens. Nowadays, most of our customers are using software tokens like the Mobile Pass app. So the Mobile Pass Plus app is an app which can be installed on iPhones, on Windows phones, on Android phones, even on laptops, and it allows you to receive push notifications. So instead of entering your token code, you just have to approve or deny access to that application. Okay, that's really user friendly. I'll show you also in the demo that we can use Kerberos authentication. So if you are logged in to a laptop which is part of the domain, okay, you have a Kerberos ticket, and you can use that Kerberos ticket to log into GlobalProtect, for example, without a password, without an additional token authentication, just with your Kerberos ticket. Okay. SMS tokens, for example, are also possible, and this is quite new. We can also use FIDO2 tokens. So what is FIDO? This is a hardware security key you can enter in the USB port of your laptop, for example, and it only requires you to touch the security key when logging in. Okay. Now, when I go back to the Mobile Pass Plus app, it also allows you to integrate with a biometric PIN, like, for example, Touch ID or Face ID, or the Android equivalents. Okay. So this is, in short, what Safenet Trusted Access is. Let's now go to GlobalProtect and Prisma Access. So what is GlobalProtect? It's the first of all, is the client VPN solution of Palo Alto Networks. So it's an agent running on your PC or on your mobile device, and it tightly integrates with the Palo Alto Networks next generation firewall. The idea is to provide you with the same security posture as if you would be on premise. Okay, so that's the idea, and yeah, it's quite a decent solution. It also has a host checking part, for example. It's called HIP, Host Information Profile, which allows you to check the security posture of your laptop, for example. So let's take the example that your antivirus is not up to date. Then you will get a notification, and you will not have the required access until you turn on your antivirus and update it to the latest signatures. We also have a clientless VPN flavor of GlobalProtect. So then you only need a browser, no agent, and it's more like a reverse proxy to web applications, for example, to your intranet site, or maybe you have Office 365, but you have you only allow access from certain IP addresses. Then you can use the clientless VPN feature to jump from here to Office 365. I'll show it also in the demo. Now, GlobalProtect is can be installed, and this is the most simple topology, where you have here your firewall, and we have always two components. So you have the GlobalProtect portal and the GlobalProtect gateway. Now, the portal is going to provide the client with all the configuration parameters, and the gateway, in fact, is going to terminate the actual client VPN. Okay, so this is the most simple setup where we only have one firewall, which is acting both as the GlobalProtect portal and the gateway. Okay, now this is a more advanced setup. So suppose you have multiple locations, for example, one in the Americas, one in Europe, one in Asia, and of course you want to provide fast access. Then you need to install your gateways close to the users. Okay, so we still have the portal and the gateway approach, but here we only have one portal. We always have one portal. And one of the firewalls is acting as the portal, and all the others are acting as the gateway. Okay, so what happens is that the client is first going to log into the portal. It will receive its configuration, and part of the configuration is the list of available gateways. Okay, so the agent will then choose one of the gateways and will connect to it, for example, to Europe in this case. Now, what's important here is that a second authentication is taking place. So we first authenticate to the portal, and then we authenticate to the gateway. Okay. Now, if you look at Safenet Trusted Access and SAML authentication and single sign-on, if we would use this, the user experience will be perfect, because the user will not see that two authentications are taking place, because everything is done with single sign-on. Okay, so you first go to the portal, then to the gateway, but single sign-on is taking place, so no hassle for the user. Okay, this was also possible with radius authentication, but then you had to work with authentication cookies, which is not that secure. Okay, so this was GlobalProtect in short. Now, GlobalProtect is also delivered by Palo Alto as a service, and this is called Prisma Access. Because with GlobalProtect, you still have to install your own firewalls. You still have to install all your portals, all your gateways. Now, this is no longer needed with Prisma Access. So Prisma Access is what they called the SASE offering, so the Secure Access Service Edge. And in fact, we don't have physical or even virtual firewalls anymore. It's just like a service which is delivered by Palo Alto, which is running fully in the cloud. And you only need Panorama. So Panorama is the central management platform of Palo Alto, but you still need that, of course, because you want to define your policies. Okay, but you don't need to deploy any additional firewalls, physical or virtual, in the cloud. This is all done by Palo Alto. Okay, so we're going to talk about the user VPN part, but you can also use Prisma Access now to connect remote accesses via a site-to-site VPN. Okay, so the only thing you would need on-premise is then a VPN device. It doesn't have to be a Palo Alto Networks firewall. It can be any IPsec-enabled device. Okay, but this is not scope of this webinar. Okay, so but important to understand is that Prisma Access is just the same as GlobalProtect, at least when we talk about user VPN, but as a service. Now, if we look at all the authentication methods that GlobalProtect and Prisma Access support, so I've listed them all, but what you see here is that there's only one authentication method which both supports multi-factor authentication and single sign-on. Okay, if we look at Radius, for example, we can still use multi-factor authentication, but we cannot use single sign-on. If we look at Kerberos, for example, we have single sign-on, but this is not really multi-factor authentication. Okay, the same with client certificates. Okay, and if you want to use FIDO tokens, FIDO2 tokens, for example, SAML is the only option anyway. Now, this is the slide I was talking about SAML. So just to explain you what is happening besides the scene. So this is the end user here. These are the applications, and we refer to them as the service provider. Okay, and Safenet Trusted Access is the IDP, the identity provider. So GlobalProtect is just an example of a service provider. So when we log in, so the user is going to the application. Okay, what is happening is going to be redirected to SAML. So the authentication request is going to be redirected to Safenet Trusted Access. This is done with SAML, and the user will receive an authentication challenge from Thales, from Safenet Trusted Access. The user will log in, okay. Then the IDP will verify, okay, I need to provide, okay, no, let's say the challenge is a token, okay. The user logs in with its token, for example, with push OTP, sorry. The IDP checks the authentication. If it's okay, then the SAML response is then redirected to the service provider, saying, okay, this user has logged in, or the authentication has failed. But if the user has, if the authentication was okay, then the user can access the application. Okay, this is done just in a few seconds. Okay, so the explanation was a lot more complex than what the user will see. Now let's go into the integration steps. So this can be done in approximately 15 minutes, of course, if you know what you have to do. But I'll just guide you with some screenshots to the main steps required to set it up. So the first thing you need to do is you need to go to Safenet Trusted Access, and you need to add an application. Okay, I'll show you already in the demo, but it's easy to explain it with screenshots. So as you see here, you can add an application, and there are a couple of templates available. I think now more than 100 applications, and GlobalProtect is one of them. And that makes it easier for you because you only need to do a couple of steps. There's also a general template if the template is not available, but in case of GlobalProtect, we can just choose the template. Okay. And then you arrive at this screen. Important here is that you need now to download the metadata file, because this file needs to be important at Palo Alto on the firewall later on. Okay, so that's the first thing you need to do. Note here also there's a help documentation link, and if you click on that link, you will go to a PDF explaining all the detailed steps you need to do, both on the Palo Alto port, but also on Safenet Trusted Access. Okay, so that's really a detailed explanation explaining everything you need. So we have the meta file. Now we go to the Palo Alto firewall, and we go to device, so the device tab, server profiles, and we go to SAML identity provider. Okay, so we import, we click on import, and we will import the metadata file we just have downloaded from the Safenet Trusted Access console. Okay, so that's all we need to do for now. If we click on that server profile, you will see that the certificate of Thales is already filled in. So that certificate is to verify the authentication of Thales. So it's done automatically. If we would go to certificates, you will see that the certificate have been installed automatically. So you don't have to do that yourself. Okay, so this was the authentication server. The next thing you need to do is you're going to make an authentication profile. Okay, so don't worry, the slides can be shared afterwards. If I'm going too fast, you will receive the slides, and there will also be a replay of this webinar. Okay, so if you go to now to authentication profile, okay, we're going to add an authentication profile. We choose the type SAML, and here we're going to choose the authentication server, which we have created in the previous step. Okay. Note here that we will, it's not mandatory, but it's recommended to also create a certificate to sign the SAML requests to the IDP. Okay, so we will have to create a certificate, and we have to choose it here. Okay, this may, if we do that, then Safenet Trusted is 100% sure that the SAML requests are coming from the right firewall and not from some hacker or something. Now, if we now click on the advanced tab, so we're still on the authentication profile, okay, we have to fill in the allow list. Now here we can choose certain Active Directory groups, but I would prefer to leave this set to all, because we'll see later on STA that we can filter on that level. Okay, we can make an application only available to, for example, human resources, but we can do that on STA. Okay, and then we can leave this to all. So now we have created the authentication profile. Okay, and now again we will have to download a metadata file, but now from the Palo Alto firewall, and we will later on import that metadata file into Safenet Trusted Access. Okay, so if we click on this metadata link, we arrive at this screen, and you see here on service we have to choose GlobalProtect. Okay, there are 3 options, but for now we choose GlobalProtect. I'll show you the other options in the demo. We choose the authentication profile. This is already pre-filled in, and we choose the URL the user will use to access the GlobalProtect portal. Okay, this is also pre-filled in, so you can just click on it. We click OK, and then the meta file will be downloaded. We also need to export the CA certificate which signed the GlobalProtect signing certificate. I'm not going into too much detail here, but that's one step you need to do, because we need to import that certificate into Safenet Trusted Access, because Safenet Trusted Access needs a way to verify the certificate of Palo Alto. And then the last step we need to do on the firewall level is changing the authentication mechanism for GlobalProtect. Okay, so we had already a functional GlobalProtect set up, but it was using just local authentication. Now, of course, we need to change the authentication mechanism to SAML. Okay, so we choose the authentication profile we had created on the previous step. Okay, and we have to do that on the portal, but also on the gateway. Okay, So let me go one slide back. So we go first to Network GlobalProtect portals. We change the authentication profile, and also we go to Network GlobalProtect gateways. We click on the gateway, and we also choose here the STA authentication profile. So these are the steps needed on Palo Alto. Okay, now we can go back to STA, to SafeNet Trusted Access, and we click on next. First thing we need to do is we upload the metadata file we downloaded from the Palo Alto Networks firewall. Okay, so quite easy. And we also upload the certificate we downloaded from the Palo Alto node. This is the CA certificate. Okay. So yeah. Next thing we need to do is, so the app is created, but we still have to assign it to our users. Okay, because if we don't do that, the app will not be available to any user. So we have to choose either no users, that's the default, all users, or specific Active Directory groups. Okay, so if we choose marketing, then people from engineering will not be able to access this application. Now we have made our application on STA. Now it's time to make a policy for it. Okay, it will be more clear on the demo, but this is just an example for GlobalProtect. So we make a policy. In this example, what do we do here? We have assigned the GlobalProtect application to all users, okay? And we only do that for this application. The access is granted, of course, and we require a token authentication, but only once per session, okay? So this allows you to enable single sign-on. I'm going to show that in the demo. It will become more clear. As a side note, just a tweak you need to do. So for browser access, single sign-on is always possible as long as you stay in the same browser window. Okay, but if you change from browsers, for example, you go from Chrome to Internet Explorer or to Firefox, of course, single sign-on is not possible. Okay, so SAML single sign-on only works within the same browser. If we look at the GlobalProtect agent, by default, GlobalProtect uses its own built-in mini browser. Okay, so that means that, for example, if you go to Office 365 in Chrome and then you open up your GlobalProtect VPN, you will not have single sign-on because it's a different browser. Now, in the latest version of GlobalProtect, and that is version 5.2 of the agent version, you can use your system browsers, your default system browser, to authenticate. Okay. Now I've listed here a link of Palo Alto explaining all the steps you need to do. Okay, and with this feature enabled, you have single sign-on even with GlobalProtect and a SaaS application in Chrome, for example. Okay, or any other system browser you use. One of those. Okay, so this was the slideware I had prepared. Let me now open up the session for questions. So if all is okay, you would now have the option to unmute yourself and to ask questions. And then the next thing we're going to do is to go into the demo. Okay, I see a question. I don't hear anyone, but you can still use the questions box. The question pane in the GoToWebinar, you can use that to ask questions. A question from Davy: how does Thales read the users or user groups? Okay, maybe that's a good. I'll go to the demo to show that. Just a second. Good opportunity to show that. Okay, so this is a domain controller. All the users are defined, of course, on Active Directory. And what we need to do, you don't need to install this. So this is a small agent. It's called the LDAP Sync Manager. What you typically do is you install that on one of the member servers. Okay. Now I've installed that on the domain controller itself, but this is not really required. It's even not recommended because I would not do that. I would just install it on another server or another member server. And what this agent is going to do is going to read all the groups from AD and its users. And on a 20-minute basis is going to sync that with the Safenet Trusted Access cloud service. Okay, that's how. Are you still seeing my screen? Just a second. Yeah, apparently sharing. Apparently unmuting does not work, so we will have to stick with the question box. So that's how the users and the groups are synced to Safenet. Okay, so I now have a domain controller here. I also have a Palo Alto Networks firewall. Let's just close that window. So I'm going to open up first. I'm going to show you Safenet Trusted Access. So let me show you. Just here, Safenet Trusted Access. Okay, I need to log in again. Bear with me just a minute. Okay. So the first thing I would like to show you is how do you define the applications? Okay, you see here I have defined multiple applications. For example, I've created one for GlobalProtect, also one for Salesforce, for Amazon Web Services, and there's also a nice user portal from Safenet Trusted Access you can use. Now, if you would like to add your own application, you can just click on Add Application, and here you will see all the different standard templates which are available. You see there are a lot of them, but if your own application is not listed, you can still use the generic template, and then you can, of course, you have a little bit more work because you need to fill in some more fields, but it will work anyway. Any application which uses SAML will work with Safenet Trusted Access. Okay, you don't have to worry about it. But for now, we have chosen the GlobalProtect template, and here you will see all those things have been filled in automatically because these were part of the template. Okay, so these are the applications you need to define. The next thing you need to do is make policies. Now there's one global policy I would like to show you. and that's the approach I like to use, is just deny everything. Okay, so this is the zero trust approach. Everything which is not defined will be denied. So this is the last policies, and then I will create policies for every application I've created here. So for example, GlobalProtect. Okay, this is the global policy. What does it say? I don't need a password, but if I would edit it, I don't need a password, but I need a multi-factor authentication, but only once per session. Okay, so this is single sign-on. But I've also created a scenario or two scenarios. For example, if I'm within the office, okay, so I'm coming from this pool of IP addresses, I only need a password. And if I'm logged into the domain, I can do that with Kerberos. Okay, Kerberos is also single sign-on, so I won't even have to do password authentication, and I don't need to do multi-factor authentication. So this will be, if I'm coming from the office, this will be completely transparent. Okay, and I've also created a policy for MacBooks requiring a password. Okay, so every requiring a password and a token authentication. Note that I can turn these policies on or off. And if I look, for example, Amazon, okay, I have single sign-on enabled. But for Salesforce, for example, I always ask for multi-factor authentication. Single sign-on is not enabled here because it's not set to once per session, it's set to every access attempt. Why? Because maybe on Salesforce I have my customer database, which is really sensitive, so I want to enforce multi-factor authentication every time I log in. Okay, so what will be the end result now? So let's show you here. For example, if I go to GlobalProtect, so this is the clientless feature of GlobalProtect. So see, you see here that I'm automatically redirected to STA, and I can ask for a push notification. Okay, I receive now a push notification on my phone. I don't know if you see it, but I just have to click on approve, Face ID, and I'm in. Okay, if I would now go to another application, for example, Amazon, you will see that here again, I'm redirected to Safenet, but here I had a policy that a password authentication was needed for MacBooks. So I hope I do remember the password. And now I'm logged in. If I would go to here, that's the user portal of STA. Nothing is needed because single sign-on was enabled. Okay. So let's jump to a Windows 10 machine. So this machine, let me first log out here. This machine is part of the domain. Okay. Let me open just a new browser window just to show you how it works. So I would like to go to the GlobalProtect clientless VPN. So look what happens. Everything is done automatically. Why? I even didn't need to fill in my username. Why? Because here I'm using Kerberos authentication. Okay, so in the Kerberos ticket, both my username and my Kerberos ticket is included, so everything is done with single sign-on. This is a really nice user experience. Now, GlobalProtect agent. Let me show you how it works. Just connect, and it will use the same thing. Of course, you will not see anything. It will just be transparent for the user. Okay, so I'm connected. If I would do that from my home or from a hotel, I would have been presented with a multi-factor authentication. Let me show you if I go back to STA. I just wanted to show you the logs. I will see you have here the access logs, and you will see here that user John. Oh no, sorry, this is the wrong virtual server. Let me change to the correct one. I'm using the demo setup. So you see that user John has accessed Amazon Web Services with password authentication. User portal has been accessed with multi-factor authentication. GlobalProtect was using Kerberos. Okay. Sometimes I'm using both password authentication and multi-factor authentication. So you can see all the detailed access logs in STA. Okay. Let me see if there are other questions so far. So this was the demo for GlobalProtect. I just wanted to show you that you can also use SAML authentication with Palo Alto Networks firewalls on other levels. So let me go back to the Windows 10 machine. I can also use SAML authentication to access the firewall admin interface. So what I need to, let me show you what the user is going to see. So I just click on single sign-on, continue, and again, now I'm using multi-factor, so I send a push. It all depends on the policy I've defined. Okay, Face ID, and I'm now logged in to the firewall. Okay. So just bear with me, the web interface is loading. What do you need to do in order for this to work? 2 steps. You need to go to device, to setup, okay, and in the you go to management, okay, and then you go to the authentication settings a little bit lower, and here you choose the authentication profile. So note this is just the same authentication profile which we also use for GlobalProtect. Okay, so I just choose it here. And the second thing you need to do is you go to your users, to your admin users, because you still have to add the users manually on the firewall. Okay. So otherwise I would not be able to log in. So this is the administrator access to the firewall using SAML. The last thing I would like to show you, and that's really nice, on Palo Alto, you can create an authentication policy. Now, what is an authentication policy? So you have multiple policies. You have your security policy, NAT policy, decryption policy, and so on. But with an authentication policy, you can enforce a step-up authentication. For example, if you have a sensitive server, your user is already known, you can access the internet, you can access internal servers, but for this specific server, you would like to enforce step-up authentication, okay? Now, for the sake of this demo, I've created an, okay, sorry, this is the wrong policy. I have to go to authentication, okay? And I'm going to, let me make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to enforce step-up authentication when going to Facebook. So let me show you how the policy looks like. So if I'm coming from the inside zone and I'm going to the outside zone, so the internet, and the URL category is, yeah, I've made my own, but you can just add your own categories like social networking, for example. Then the action will be, it's called an authentication enforcement object, which I've called web form using STA. Okay, so let me show you how it looks for the end user. I go to Facebook. Note that I'm redirected to STA. Kerberos authentication is happening and I'm logged in. Okay, if I would like to, I can disable Kerberos and ask for a multi-factor authentication. So that was what I had in mind for the demo. Now I have 5 minutes left for questions, but since the unmute button, let me try again if I can unmute you guys. No. Okay, so I don't see anything in the chat. No more questions. Then I would like to end the webinar here, and thanks you all. Sorry, I see one question. Will it be possible to get the recorded session? Yes, of course. We will make the recorded session available for you later on today or this week. I'm not sure, but it will be available for sure. So with that, I hope it was interesting, and I thank you all for joining, and hope to see you next time. Okay, bye.